All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Newington Town Council regular meeting of October 27th. It is 7 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. And we will now move to our roll call, please. Susan, if you would.
Okay, Counselor Anist,
Here.
Counselor Braverman,
Here.
Counselor Budraco, Counselor Camillo,
Here.
Counselor Donahue,
Here.
Counselor Mankey,
Here.
Counselor Minor,
Here.
Counselor Nagel,
Here.
Mayor Del Buono.
Here, and Susan, I believe Gail's on now.
Oh. Counselor Budraco?
Here.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Everyone is present. We'll move on. The next item is approval of the agenda.
I have two corrections I'd like to make to the agenda. Or
Okay, go
changes.
ahead.
I'd like to remove number what's V1 to V7D, 7D, updated facility study. I believe it hasn't been fully looked at yet, so remove that. And also approval of the minutes, because I don't think we've gotten all the copies of the minutes we need to approve.
Yeah, the 13th came out.
We have the 13th, but not the 29th.
Well, do you want to do the 13th and not the 29th?
We also have a counselor who is not having access to those minutes, I believe. Is that right?
Correct. One of our counselors hasn't been able to access the minutes, so
Okay.
I'd just rather do them all at once. We'll just hold it off to next meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Would have been
Thank
nice if you told me.
Sorry, I just learned about it 5 minutes ago.
Okay. Don't do it again.
I'll try not to.
There's a motion on the table to approve the agenda with two changes. That would be to remove item 7D, update on facility study, as well as to remove the approval of minutes item. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is there a
Second.
second to the motion? Thank you, Counselor Anna seconded it. And we will go ahead and do a roll call vote, please.
Sorry. Counselor Anist,
Yes.
Counselor Braverman,
Yes.
Counselor Budraco,
Yes.
Counselor Camillo,
Yes.
Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Mankey,
Yes.
Counselor Minor,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Mayor Del Buono.
Yes.
9-0.
Wonderful. We have an agenda for the evening. Thank you, everyone. The next item is awards and proclamations, and we have the distinct pleasure of having Ms. Elsa Batista with us this evening. She is the 2020 Teacher of the Year for the Newington Board of Education. Welcome. I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation into the record. We're going to start there. I have the actual one here, so instead of trying to read it on that screen, don't mind me. All right, here we go. Proclamation. Whereas Ms. Elsa Batista, World Language Teacher at Martin Kellogg Middle School, has been designated as Newington's 2020-2021 Teacher of the Year, and whereas Ms. Elsa Batista was selected based upon her exceptional skills and dedication to children and the teaching profession. She values the ideals of teamwork. She is intelligent, a strong communicator, an advocate for all students, and a strong believer that public education is the vehicle to prepare all children for participation in our society. She is an individual who is poised and articulate with an outgoing nature. She possesses the superior ability to inspire learning in all students. And whereas Ms. Batista will represent Newington in the Connecticut Teacher of the Year program. And whereas Ms. Batista has been teaching in Newington for 7 years as a world language Spanish teacher. After teaching 5 years in the Bronx, she moved to Connecticut and taught at St. Mary's School prior to joining Martin Kellogg Middle School. And whereas Ms. Batista finds opportunities within our curriculum for her students to learn about different cultures. She is a strong advocate of creating a colorful, fun, and inviting environment. And whereas, as a world language educator, Ms. Batista makes it a point to provide opportunities for her students to celebrate how they identify themselves and see the beauty of diversity in the classroom. She delivers consistency, stability, and reliability to all her students. As an educator, she strongly believes that if students feel good about themselves, they will perform better academically. And whereas Ms. Batista is deeply committed to her school and community, Elsa's commitment to her students centers around civic leadership, serving as a role model for her students. She and her 8th grade colleagues spearheaded the Staircase to Success project at Martin Kellogg Middle School by creating inspirational words and quotes and placing them on the spaces between the staircases. This project has had a very positive impact on students, as well as reinforcing the school model every day, every student, every day. And whereas Ms. Batista facilitated the creation of the Corner Cub Care Closet in the building to assist students who may be struggling financially, providing students and their families clothing and toiletries. And whereas Dr. Maureen Brummett, Superintendent of Schools, indicated, quote, Ms. Batista's passion for her work, ability to inspire student learning, commitment, enthusiasm, and deep compassion for her school community strongly support her selection as Newington's Teacher of the Year, end quote. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby recognizes Miss Elsa Batista as Newington's Teacher of the Year and extends its sincere congratulations and appreciation to her dedication and commitment to Newington's children. Dated in Newington, Connecticut, this 27th day of October, 2020, signed Beth Del Buono, Mayor. Congratulations, Ms. Batista. So that's my motion. Is there a
Second.
motion to accept?
Second.
Second. And discussion by any counselors? Oh, hold on. I'm sorry, guys. I don't have my participants window up. Let me zoom over there to see if any hands are up. Counselor Menke.
Yes, I would just congratulate Ms. Batista. Being the father of a teacher, I know teaching is not an easy profession, and certainly not in these days with COVID. Someone who brings the kind of passion and dedication to our students, like is witnessed by this proclamation, is a value to us. It makes a difference to our town. But more importantly, it makes a difference to all the students that come through her classroom. So I would just congratulate her on this award and this honor. And I'm sure it's well deserved, and it's great we can recognize her great activity.
Thank you, Counselor Menke. Deputy Mayor Bedrejko.
Yes, I know, Ms. Batista, you and your colleagues worked exceptionally hard this year. And there's probably not much that you learned in teacher training that prepared you for the type of stresses that you've got to go through this past several months. But in any event, you're teaching a very important subject, world language. But from the list of achievements in this declaration, it's obvious that not only are you interested in instructing for academic success, but it's apparent that you really do go above and beyond, and by demonstrating to students their responsibilities of being good citizens in this global world that we're living in. So I want to thank you for all you do for your students, for the school, Newington school system, and also for the community of Newington. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Any other council comment?
I don't think there's anything else that needs to be
Go
said.
ahead, Ms. Braverman.
Let me unmute.
You're on. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Ms. Batista, I just wanted to say your passion for your work. I wish I could have you in class. I would love to sit in your class. So that's my best compliment to anyone is that we all want to sit and be with you and learn from you. So
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
It's obvious you love what you do.
I
And
do.
that's
Thank you.
important to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Nagel.
I'd like to add my congratulations as well. As a former teacher, I can imagine what you're going through, and during this particular time of COVID, your passion and your dedication probably is put well to the test. And your background is so varied and diverse, and it's really a privilege to have you in the school system because of that diversity of being from New York and also having taught in a private Catholic school, and then coming to us and bringing your expertise to our students in Newington. I appreciate it very much, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Batista, I just want to add my comments. I wanted to congratulate you. It really is a pleasure to be able to honor you this evening. Also, as an educator myself, I understand how challenging things are right now. I know I'm doing a combination right now of online and in person, and it's so
Oh, yeah.
challenging. So I applaud you for all the work you're doing and all the learning you're doing, because I know right now we're all learning too. So
Definitely.
what struck me when I was reading your proclamation, well, several things, but so many accomplishments. But really, the one line that really struck me was that as an educator, you believe that if students feel good about themselves, they will perform better academically. And that's huge. And I couldn't agree more. And really, all of your accolades in here show that you're not just focused on that student in your classroom, you're focused on the whole community of students. And that speaks volumes. And really, we so appreciate your efforts and truly congratulate you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you very much.
So now it's your turn. You get to respond if you'd like to. And we
thank
will open
you.
it up for any members of the public that would like to speak as well.
I'm gonna close the screen, but hopefully you'll still see me. My students, they're so patient with me. Okay, I'm just gonna read this. Okay, please let me know if you can't hear me. Good evening, Mayor Beth Del Buono. I say it Del Buono. How do you say it? I heard it differently.
No, you're probably saying it the correct Italian way. I usually say Del Buono, but it's Del Buono.
Buono,
Correct.
okay.
You're good.
And look, I even did this. Why did I do this? I feel like that helps me say it better. Thank you, Mayor Beth Del Buono, town councilors, members of the committee and residents, and Dr. Brummett. I am thankful to have been chosen as the Newington Public Schools Teacher of the Year and as a semi-finalist for the State of Connecticut Teacher of the Year program. I work at Martin Kellogg Middle School and have an opportunity to see my students grow as language learners, leaders, both in and outside of my classroom. As many of you know, I work among some of the best educators in the state and feel that I represent the best in the state, that represent the best town in the state. As an educator, I continue to learn and grow from my students and colleagues from every school in town. Although this year has proven to be a challenge due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I feel safe for myself, my colleagues, my students, and their families every day that we enter the school building and classrooms. Thanks to the outstanding work Dr. Brummett and her committee have done to set the protocols that we have in place right now. Delivering instruction does not look the same as it did last year, but I assure you that we are planning, teaching, and there's a lot of learning happening and laughter inside and outside of the classroom, because we also get to go outside, weather permitting. And as a parent in town, I would like to thank you, the Town Council, for your continuous support and efforts in making our town safe and welcoming for everyone. My two boys, Christian is 13 years old and Nicholas is 11, a 9th grader and a 6th grader. They love their community and their schools. They love walking to town. They feel safe. That makes me feel grateful for the many individuals who have held positions in the council to ensure that more children grow up loving their towns the way my children do. I know your job is not easy, and at times you know you cannot please everyone, and yet you make the decisions that are in the best interest of all. Thank you so much for this recognition, and I appreciate everything you do, even if I don't get to see you and tell you often.
Thank you so much. That's great news. You were a semifinalist too. I didn't realize that. Wonderful.
That was so exciting and fun. So now I'm part of a wonderful cohort of 14 educators across Connecticut. I want to make sure I don't kick myself out of this meeting. Okay, here we go. So it's so exciting. So now we're part of this awesome cohort, and we're going to receive professional development throughout the year. Some of the fall events have been moving to the spring to allow this pandemic to relax a little bit and let us enjoy and celebrate. But we will be having virtual meetings and connections. So
wonderful. Oh, congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to open it up to the public now. If there's any members of the public that would like to comment on the proclamation as well. So I'm just going to look in our attendees window, see if there's anybody raising their hand. If you are a member of the public and you are participating in the Zoom app, you can raise your hand to be recognized by using the raise hands function in the window. And if you are dialing in, you can do *9 to be recognized. Oh, there is someone popping their hand up there. Hold on one second. I believe it's Miss Lyons. Miss Lyons, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. This is one of the times when I'm very saddened that we don't have in-person meetings. The Teacher of the Year Award is something that I always look forward to seeing. And Ms. Batista, I know that you have to be a very special person just listening to what was said about you tonight and hearing it from some of your students' parents. My daughter graduated from Newington High School in 1998, so it's been a long time. I've been out of the system. I graduated from Newington High School in 1963. But it's teachers like you, the dedication that you have for your children, that have made Newington residents into the citizens they are today. I thank you for your work with the children and especially during these hard times. Thank you once again from the bottom of my heart. It's a very difficult job and it takes a special person to do it. Congratulations.
Thank you, Rose.
Thank you, Ms. Lyons. All right. I don't see any other hands up, so we are all set. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Batista.
Thank
Feel
you
free
so
to stay
much.
on as long as you'd like, but if you have other things to do, we totally understand.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful night.
You as well.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, folks, the next item is public participation in general.
Mayor,
As I
Did
mentioned
you
earlier.
need
I'm
to do a
sorry.
vote?
Oh, we didn't do the formal vote. I apologize. Roll call vote, please, on the proclamation.
Okay, Counselor Anist,
Yes.
Counselor Braverman,
Yes.
Counselor Budraco,
Yes.
Counselor Camillo,
Yes.
Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Mankey,
Yes.
Counselor Minor,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Mayor Del Buono.
Yes.
9-0.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, the next item is public participation in general. Any member of the public that wishes to speak can raise their hand in the Zoom app. It's the raise hand in the participants window. And if you're calling in, it's *9 to be recognized. We'll just give it a moment to see if anyone wants to raise their hand. And I see Ms. Lyons. Let me just, whoops, hold on one second. Ms. Lyons, are you there?
I'm here after the second *6 to unmute. I'm here. Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. This is the highlight of the night, listening to the CIP being discussed, and I hope to hear from the town manager and hopefully from Tom Bowen, who they had agreed to hear from at their subcommittee meeting. So I will sit back and relax from the comfort of my couch, and everybody stay safe and stay well if I don't make it through the end of the meeting. Take care now. Bye.
Thank you, Ms. Lyons. All right, I don't see any other hands up right now, so we will continue on. Any email correspondence did anyone receive? Did we receive any through our town box? I didn't see any. Okay. We will continue on to remarks by counselors on public participation. I don't see any counselors with their hand raised, so we will continue to consideration of old business. And the first item is our health update regarding COVID-19. I see that we have Charles Brown from CCHD with us and Mr. Town Manager, Mr. Chapman. Would you like to start us off?
Sure. Let me just say that the COVID-19 is coming back as anticipated and predicted by Charlie Brown. We met this morning with our staff and with Maureen, our superintendent of schools, to go over what we're doing now to prevent COVID-19 from getting into the town hall. We've determined to lock down the building. If someone needs services, they can come to the entrance, and there's phone numbers to call all departments. They'll can call, and a representative will come and meet them and handle their business, hopefully outside of the building. All employees throughout the whole town now are required to wear their masks at all times unless they're in their private vehicle or private office. If they're meeting with anyone else, then everyone must have masks on. And we did have, at our meeting this morning, Mr. Brown was there to, we'll say, discuss the view from the district health aspect. And Charlie, you're on. Do you want to take it from here?
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, I mean, we've seen a very much a resurgence in the virus and the number of cases that we're actually seeing over the past 2 weeks. In the past 2 weeks in Newington, we've actually seen, 52 cases of COVID-19 confirmed cases in the last 2 weeks, 21 2 weeks ago, and then 31 here in the past week. This has really brought our levels up as you look at the map, at the graphs, to levels that we haven't seen since March or early April in the first wave. And our concern is that we're going to continue to see this rise in the number of cases. As many of you know, the state of Connecticut has put in a new alert system for when cases rise over a certain level to be a high alert. I am anticipating on Thursday, when those numbers come out on Thursday afternoon, that Newington will probably be, if not in the high alert, at least in the orange level, to where we're going to need to take some action. As Keith discussed, they did ask me in this morning to help give some guidance on appropriate measures as we move forward. And I would ask that all town council and the mayor and everyone within the departments really echo a consistent message around the need for everyone to really focus on the 3 W's. That's wearing a mask, washing your hands, and watching your distance. The more we can get this information out, the better off people are going to be, especially if they adhere to the protocols. What we believe is driving this increase in cases at this time is small group functions and sporting events are actually driving the number of cases that we're seeing. And we are seeing a younger cohort of patients, of cases, actually getting this as far as the confirmations are concerned and spreading this within their peers. So it's a little bit different than what it presented back in the springtime, where we were seeing mostly cases within the nursing homes and congregate settings. Now we're actually starting to see a few cases in our nursing homes, and Newington does have a couple of cases within those congregate settings as well. But the majority of new cases that we're seeing are within the community. So I urge all of you to really take action, show leadership within the community, and encourage everyone to take those preventive measures that they need to take to be able to limit the spread of this particular disease. And with that, I'll stand ready to answer any questions.
Thank you, Charles. Any council questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Pedraco.
Yes, actually, you kind of addressed it a little bit. I was wondering about the new cases in Newington, the demographics of it, but you indicated that it's not.
It's not the congregate care settings.
Right. But when you say it's within the community and a younger demographics, is it children, students, people in the 20s, 30s? Can you give any kind of?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot in the 30s and 20s. Some cases are starting to show up in their teens, and we have had some cases within school settings. We are not seeing at this time transmission within the school setting. I just want to be clear about that, and to thank Dr. Brummett and all the school administrations for their work in keeping this disease from spreading in their schools. What we're seeing is spread outside of the school setting. That has had some significant impacts where we've had to quarantine a large number of students because of outside activities like soccer and hockey and things of that nature. But we're actually starting to see, more cases among those, in their teens, 20s, and 30s. It's not really the cases that we saw where it was the elderly that were getting this in the spring. And even yesterday, or actually today, we had a case of a 1-year-old that was confirmed within one of our towns. So it doesn't respect age, but with this turning into the younger cohort, what we're very concerned about is they're much more socially active in some cases, and usually a little less adherent to the precautions that will keep from spreading this particular disease when they're in those small group settings.
Now, when you're, these cases that are being diagnosed, are they basically being managed through self-quarantine? So there's not necessarily the hospitalizations that we saw in the beginning or the dramatic, it's more of a case of self-quarantining and staying away and managing it that way?
Yes and no. I mean, for the most part, when we get confirmation of cases, we're instituting contact tracing to be able to give them information on how to isolate those who are sick, who are confirmed cases, and then quarantine those who have been exposed to a confirmed case. So we're doing that every day. But what we have seen with respect to hospitalizations is the numbers are definitely going up. And what concerns us most of all is that the ICU utilization is actually up as well. Here, I believe last week, the ICU capacity was at 80. It was up to 80% used. So they only had 20% capacity within the system in the region. I believe that number has probably gone up since then. So it is concerning to me because we have not seen a lot of flu cases at this time, thank goodness, because that would really, I think, push us to the brink if we had a lot of cases of flu. So, I encourage everyone, we have our last 2 flu clinics tomorrow in Rocky Hill, the drive-through clinics. Here last week, we had drive-through clinics in Newington. I thank everybody that came out, and I encourage those who have not gotten their flu shot to please do so. If not at our clinics, get them at your doctor and pharmacy. You can get a flu shot just about everywhere. But the importance of actually doing that this year cannot be overstressed, because if we start to see a large number of flu patients in addition to the number of COVID cases that we're seeing in the hospitals will become overwhelmed again, close to what they were back in the spring. And that will drive that mortality. And we really don't want to see that.
Thank you.
Councilor Minor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Charles, just if you could touch on the contact tracing, if
Yes.
you've been able to accomplish any of that with the resources you've got, and if you're able to core them back to where they're originating from.
Well, I mean, the contact tracing himself is not to go back to point of source. It's to be able to identify who that confirmed case has been in contact with, so that we can get them into quarantine so that they don't potentially spread the disease any farther. So we're not looking necessarily for who they had contact with and who gave them the disease. We're trying to move forward and kind of circle around them to ensure that everybody that they had significant contact with is in quarantine, so that if they do happen to develop the disease, they're not in the community and spreading that disease at that point. And last week, CDC changed the definition for what a close contact is to 15 minutes within 24 hours of close contact, and that would be within 6 feet of a confirmed case. So in the past, it was just 10 to 15 minutes of contact they've gotten another study that has shown that even small incremental contact over the course of a day can contribute to, infection. So they really changed that. They changed that definition last week, and we've been working with the schools on how that affects contact tracing and ultimately how it affects quarantine and isolation.
Thank you, Charles. Let's see, Counselor Anist.
Thank you. Well, the hot topic is trick or treating. What is your recommendations as well as the state's recommendations for people going trick or treating?
State Department of Health does not recommend trick or treating or trunk or treating this year. They consider both to be high risk activities. I would say that if you're going to engage in trick or treating, that you follow, some guidelines to be able to make it a safer activity. It's not something I would recommend, but make sure that the individuals are wearing masks, try to maintain the social distance between groups, and really, try to limit those interactions, those face-to-face interactions, as they go through that process. I know I'd shared with the town manager some recommendations that the Department of Public Health has if people choose to go through that, and I would encourage people to go to the Department of Public Health website and search for Halloween guidance to be able to find those recommendations and follow them. I do know that Hartford has come out, I believe, yesterday and said that they do not encourage trick or treating at this point, and it's a tough call, but I honestly don't think that it's worth it at this juncture. We are seeing the number of cases rise very quickly.
Counselor Ennis?
Thank you. Is there a way, Keith, that we can put some information on our webpage of what the recommendations are to make it easy for our residents to locate it?
Sure, we'll take care of that first thing in the morning.
Great. Anyone else? Counselor Braverman?
Dr. Brown, how do we compare with Weathersfield, Rocky Hill, our neighbors, West Hartford, as far as incidence and prevalence?
We are seeing very similar rises in cases among most of the communities in our health district. So I know Weathersfield, their number of cases here this afternoon, they had probably 5 confirmed cases that came in. So it's very similar to what we're seeing in Newington. The only outlier for that would be Rocky Hill, and they have not seen quite the number of cases, but they're close. I think that Thursday is going to be some interesting data that's coming out with respect to the number of cases per 100,000 in the last 2 weeks, which is the metric that they set for actually triggering these alerts. So, it's something that we're definitely watching. We know across the state, though, as you can see from the maps, it's starting to light up with red from last week to this week, I assume, and from everything that I'm talking with my colleagues, that we're only going to see more towns go into the alert status.
Thank you.
Charles, the state had set the metrics for the boards of ed as well regarding the cases per 100,000, correct? And I mean, my understanding was once it hit 20, that it's pretty much recommended that you go into hybrid at that point, right? Or is it 10 is hybrid?
I think it's 10 that's hybrid, and Hartford County actually went into that this past Thursday. And we've been working very closely with Dr. Brummett and the school system on what their status is going to be. So I know that, it is something that we've taken into account. I know we're looking at pressing pause perhaps on the reopening schedule that they had already started. And I know that other towns are in similar position, Weathersfield being one of them. So, it is definitely The numbers are going up, and we're having to take action to be able to start to curb this. The one thing that I fear in all of this, and I've been accused of being conservative in my approach, and there's a reason for that, is that it's very hard to get people to accept restrictions after you've released them, and knowing that, that the cases are going up, trying to be able to bring restrictions back, I think is going to be very difficult. So we're really going to, I think in this second round, going to be focusing much more on communication, which is why I really ask all of you to assist us in this by stressing those 3 W's, by really trying to put out within your own networks and through your own channels the importance of those 3 actions that they can take individually and as a group and community to be able to limit the spread.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I don't see anyone else. Thank you so much, Charles. I can't say enough what a wonderful, not just resource, but support you've been to us overall throughout all of this. And we appreciate you taking the time to come and update us on a regular basis. And I know you speak with the town manager on a regular basis and help us out, each and every week. So truly appreciate you and hope you know that.
Well, thank you. It's my honor to be able to do that. And we're here whenever y'all need us. So don't be afraid to call.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on now to our town hall project update. Mr. Chapman?
Yes, the new town hall continues to go through their punch list, fixing and repairing and replacing anything that we find to be incorrect. We've had the state fire marshal, the building official, and Kerma, our insurance company, come in and look at the gymnasium and the bleachers and the stairway and everything, and that's all been pretty much cleared up. We have a couple of more things we need to do with the temporary wall, the portable wall that divides the gymnasium, but that's being worked on as well. So from that perspective, the new town hall's moving right along. The demo of the old town hall is becoming more challenging because as they get further into it, and they're pretty much through the whole thing now, except for the connection between the police department and the old town hall, and there are some problems that are being discovered, but we think we may have a delay on being able to demo the entire remaining portion where the auditorium connected over to the police department. But there is an engineer and architect looking at that now. And once they make a decision, then we'll know whether we're going to move forward quickly or be delayed. So that may put a delay onto the parking area for the front of the new town hall when it's available. But I will keep you posted. We just found this problem out in the last day or two, so it's being investigated right now. But other than that, the new town hall is coming along fine.
Thank you. Did you want to mention that pretty unique find that came out of the demolition?
Yeah, there was just as they were demoing, the contractor found a time capsule that was placed into the old building back in the 1950s. It is under lock and key right now with the town clerk, as he has both time capsules in his vault right now. So we don't know what's in it. We don't know the history of it. We're trying to find out when it was placed, what it was placed for, what the plan was, how long is to be unsealed or be sealed, and so forth. So we don't know whether it's a Board of Education action or a town council action or a graduating class action, but it was part of the structure in the gymnasium. That's where it was located, in the wall. So we want to do our due diligence and determine, who is the rightful owner, we'll say, for this and what the plans were for it. Or it's not easy to find the history, but I know James is looking along with Paul to try to figure it out. So once we know more about it, we'll let you know, but it's exciting. We don't know what's in it. So we'll have to wait and see.
That is pretty exciting. And if anybody can get to the bottom of it, it's James, that's for sure.
If anybody out in the Newington public arena knows the history of that time capsule that was placed in the gymnasium of the old town hall in the 50s, we would love to hear from them. So
Oh, there we go, guys. Let's get the word out on that. See if we can get some information. Maybe our public can help us with that.
Yep.
Great. Counselor Menke?
I know we did have an issue with water leaks. Has there been any further occurrence of that?
The water leaks in the new building, there was leaks in the ceiling of the gymnasium, a couple of small leaks that I believe have been repaired. The water penetration through the wall in the multi-purpose room has been, I think there was regrading done on the outside to prevent that from happening again. As far as the basement goes, there has not been any more water seepage, so I think they're being captured now. We still haven't had a real heavy rain for a long duration, but things are looking pretty positive at this point.
And one more question, the status of the freezers in the human services?
Yeah, apparently those freezers are going to need to have some type of ventilation system installed. And I know the committee is working with the architect on that issue, but something went awry, we'll say, with the understanding of what was expected to be created for those freezers and refrigerators and what actually happened. So there's going to have to be a modification of some type to address that.
But that's being worked on?
I'm sorry?
That's being worked on though, right?
Yes, it is being worked on, yes. Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
need to get that fixed, yes.
Right, thank you.
With the impending holidays, I would imagine that's an even bigger issue to try and resolve sooner, or at least get an alternative.
Yeah, it's a problem, and it's being worked on as quickly as it can be, but it was, as I said, it was an oversight or a misunderstanding, or, I mean, the architect looked at the refrigeration systems, and it should have been addressed, I believe, through the building of the town hall, but it did not get addressed.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Nagel?
Very briefly, Keith, I'd like to know if the status of the town hall and things that have been done, is there any difference in that has been, it may occur when it comes to election day and the use of part of the gymnasium for District 1 to vote?
The gymnasium will be available along with the multi-purpose rooms in that area down in the recreational area. The parking, I've asked all employees not to park in the town hall parking in along Garfield Street. And everybody's going to move up to the OFI center. We have permission to park up there. So the voters will have a place to park right off of Garfield Street, and they'll have access into the building at the far end on Garfield Street through the recreational area. So that should work fine. That's all been worked out with the registrars and the town clerk.
Good, thank you.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge there is someone in the attendees window that has their hand up, but right now it's just the part of the council meeting. So there's an opportunity for public participation at the end of our meeting. I just wanted to clarify that so that person's not waiting to be called on. All right, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the CIP subcommittee recommendation. So you'll recall that the council had put together a subcommittee of this body to consider this current CIP process. And out of that, we've also been given a report from the town manager to review this evening. There's no action being requested this evening. This is a review of part 1 of the plan, I believe, from Mr. Chapman, who's going to then give us a part 2 when he gets more information. So Mr. Chapman, do you want to go ahead and give us your report?
Sure. As I indicated to the council several weeks ago, I do have concerns about the CIP plan as it's currently configured and funded. What the concerns I have are that it appears that the 5-year plan has not stayed as a 5-year plan. Over time, it has become a 1-year plan, which really has influenced virtually every aspect of the infrastructure, whether it be motor vehicles or buildings or IT equipment, or streets and sidewalks. And what I found through my research is that there doesn't seem to be a commitment to stick with a long-term plan, and there's very little consistency on how things have been determined that should be funded and proceeded with. For example, the motor vehicles. We have let me just look it up here just to make sure I'm right. We have about 136 vehicles on in our fleet right now, not counting school buses or some of the police vehicles. However, of those 136 vehicles, about 55 of them are listed in the CIP report for budget, but there's no attention given to when they would be leaving the fleet, how long we're going to keep them, how they're going to be reallocated, how they're going to be funded if we replace them. It's like they're orphans within our CIP plan. And it's consistent throughout all of the areas, whether it be highway or parks or fire or police. There's just no logic that I can see anymore in the plan, as the plan was originally developed, where every vehicle would have a date of, we'll say, optimum life cycle, where it would come into the fleet. We would track it. We would indicate the value each year as it gets older. We would know exactly what year we were getting rid of equipment. But that seems to all have gone by the wayside. So instead of having, we'll say, in the highway department, a snowplow fleet of 14 vehicles that are no older than 15 years old, we now have 6 of the vehicles out of the fleet for snow removal that are somewhere between, I think it's 17 and 27 years old, or 19 and 27 years old. So we're depending on snowplow equipment that is 27 years old, which is unheard of for frontline vehicles. One of the things that Newington was always known for, and I gave you as a council a copy of the report that was done by the Army Corps back in the late 70s, of the fact that Newington was identified as being one of the best, if not the best, snow removal operations in the whole snow belt of the North America. I worked with the Army on that study, and what they tried to do was to simulate a similar program to the town of Newington's through computer software that they felt that could be utilized by all municipalities in the snow belt of America. And what they found was that they came up with 5 different snow plow operation software programs, only to find that Newington, out of the 5 they developed, Newington was better at performing in 3 of the software packages that they developed, which meant that we beat them 3 out of 5 times. And they, not regret, but it was a disadvantage to them, because they thought that they were going to beat us, and it turned out that we beat them 3 out of 5 times. But it just showed back then that Newington was the premier town for snow removal operations during everything right up through blizzards, and particularly in 76, 77, 78. But that was because we had good equipment, and we had trained people, and everything worked like clockwork. I'm not sure that we have that when we have 27-year-old trucks now. So it was a real benefit for Newington to really focus in on snow operations. And we were well known for that throughout the whole state and Obviously, the Army thought it was the same. So that's an example. Then I looked at, we used to have alternative fuel vehicles in town. We were really promoting those in the 90s with compressed natural gas, where we had Connecticut Natural Gas come in and actually install at no cost a pumping station on Garfield Street for compressed natural gas vehicles. They're all gone. Even the pumping station's gone. And, we should be promoting alternative fuel vehicles because of the environmental benefits of having vehicles like electric or hybrid or compressed natural gas for environmental purposes. But we have virtually no alternative fuel vehicles right now, which is really disappointing because we should have about 25% of our fleet right now with alternative fuels. But we don't have hardly any anymore. As far as the highway snow operations go, we used to always plan on 7.5 miles on average per snowplow route. And we still do that, but again, it's with the equipment that is much older. And now we have 104 miles of road, which means we need 16 trucks in total with 2 spares. But then we look at the road surfaces, road conditions themselves as another aspect of the CIP. And our road system was planned to be a 20-year cycle for surface before it was milled and repaved. We are now almost at a 30-year cycle. I asked the town engineer to provide to me an estimate of where we are in relation to the condition of the roads. And many of our roads are deficient right now. To bring those up to a 20-year cycle, which is what it should be, it would be a $9 million cost right now. And that's because we've been cheating the system every year and not funding what we should have been funding. Going back to the other equipment, the fire department, we've had discussions about the truck that they're trying to buy. What I found in the fire department fleet is that they have 22 vehicles that they operate. However, only half of those, or I should say 13, are contained within the schedule of replacement. The other ones are in the booklet, but there's no evidence of when they're going to be replaced and how much they cost to be replaced and so forth. So that is making it difficult to replace vehicles in a timely manner when we apparently keep deferring buying vehicles because we don't have the money. Same with the police. When I was here years ago, 3-year cycle for police cruisers. You buy them, 3 years later, you get rid of them. We're now up to an 8-year replacement cycle, which is not in our best interest, I don't believe. Now, what is causing this problem is that we've added in now the IT component, where all the information technology, for the most part, is funded through the CIP. The problem with that is the CIP is very specific that it must be $25,000 in cost and must have a life expectancy of no less than 7 years. Virtually all of the IT investments are not designed to last 7 years. So what we've done is we've taken the IT expenditures that should have been in the operating budget, put those into the CIP, and that takes away from the other components because the funding for the IT is coming out of a fixed amount of funding that is provided every year in the CIP. And then to make matters even worse, the bond money, the debt service that we pay right now, we're at, I think it's 1 point. Let me look it up because it is important. Hold on 1 second. hold on. I'm not finding it in my report here, but I know it's in here somewhere. But anyway, the bond money is being a direct expenditure out of the CIP. And so the bond coupled with the IT expenses, those costs are decreasing the monies available for vehicles and streets and buildings. And the buildings, we don't have any information on the buildings this report. I have part 2 coming in a couple of weeks. But the buildings are just, from looking at the buildings myself and touring not all of the buildings, but many of them, they're in disrepair. And there's a lot of work that has to be done. And I think that's going to be revealed with the Owens report that'll be coming out very shortly. So you take all those things of the debt service, the IT money, the delay in the streets being maintained properly, the delay in replacing equipment and not even understanding what equipment we actually own and want to replace. You put all that together and we have a mess on our hands. And, you know, I know years ago when I was here, there was much more specific controls placed on the CIP. And there was no deviation unless an emergency came up in the 5-year plan. And the 5-year plan has been completely ignored, I think. So we have problems, and the problems are going to grow every year until we get control of what it is that is our priorities and how we're going to fund those priorities. And I just don't see that as being done over the last 18 years that I've been gone.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chapman. That was, I have to say, when I read the report this weekend, it was very thorough. Gave us a lot of information in many different areas. You know, I've said this for years. We're only as strong as a council as our administration is and the information they provide us. So, you know, we have lots of information here to consider for sure. And we can't turn away from this. This is a problem that we've been faced with. And as a council, we need to decide how to handle these issues that are coming forward now that are being brought to our attention. So, you know, with that, I'll open it up for discussion.
If I may, just for a second, Mayor, I did find on the debt service issue,
Mhm.
You know, we're currently at $1.8 million of debt service a year. That will rise in 2023-24 to 2.1 million. And then assuming you go ahead with the school renovations, you will be at 3.6 billion. And now all that comes out of the CIP that has to be offset with decreases in the other categories. So it's a big issue that needs to be addressed because, you know, the other thing that I didn't mention in the report, I don't believe either, is that you have not had economic growth in this town. And when you don't have economic growth, that money that's being spent has to come from the taxpayers through a higher mill rate. You know, if we were, you know, growing every year, you know, $50 million of economic development, that would offset most of what I'm talking about, but you haven't had that happen. So, so you're not only spending your money differently and not following the CIP plan, but you're also not getting in the revenues that support such a plan. So it's a double situation that you're faced with. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open it up for council comment or questions. Councilor Mankey. Oh, you're on mute, Councilor.
How about that? That better?
Much better.
Thanks. So on the last page of your report here, your recommendations would be that we keep the CIP, but just sort of disband the committee and the professional staff would develop what would go in the CIP, and then the council as a whole would vote on that. Is that what is that my understanding?
Yeah, it's basically that, you set the policy, you're the council and you set policy, and our responsibility is as administration is to carry out that policy. But certainly the administration has to provide to you the recommendations based upon a professional perspective. If they're presented to you, as had been years ago where there was no committee, then we don't get into, the political arena. We don't get into, the squeaky wheel getting the grease. It's solely what is professionally recommended by the town administration. For an example, when we get the report from Owens, that I view, and I've seen the draft, that is going to be the basis from which all the buildings and all the facilities in this town are going to be addressed, and dollar-wise and priority-wise. That is what we should have been doing with the vehicles and the streets and the IT. Now, the IT is questionable because that probably shouldn't even be in the CIP.
Right.
It deserves its own IT reserve fund program.
So my other question is you aren't proposing we change the 7-year lifespan and the $25,000 limit? Are you? Not
No, based upon my experience, we started out with this being, I think it was 7 years and 15,000, and then it's gone up to 7 years and 25,000. Things have increased in cost, but I think 7 years and 25,000 at this point, and it must meet both criteria, I think is appropriate for right now. If anything, you may be a little shy on the upper level of the funding. Maybe it should be at 50,000 or something, but I think 25 right now would at least get us in better control than we have had.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Petracco.
Yeah, when I was reading this, I was kind of taken aback by the fact that this actually, we can't, of all the issues that you identified, we certainly can't address all of them, which is why prioritization and data, like you said, non-political data collection is going to be key. Certainly, this plan can't be created because we don't know what our capital needs are going to be until we get that the facilities answered. But like you said, that takes care of a major part of it. But I was kind of taken aback by the number of, like you said, that our fleet, we don't even have a really good handle on our fleet, nor do we have a good handle on the condition of our roads per se. So switching over to, not even switching over, however we manage to go forward, you and your staff are going to have an incredible, I think, job to put together a plan for fleet, facilities, roads, whatever, date they were acquired, the last time that they were addressed or worked on or maintained, the anticipated, lifespan, depreciation, whatever. I mean, it's going to take an awful lot of work that I do believe only professionals are going to be able to address. That's certainly something I don't think anybody on the council can make intelligent decisions on without having that information available. So it does seem to me that it is, for us to be able to make any kind of intelligent decision, we need all that work and the recommendations, because your staff is going to be the ones who see the bird's eye view of the town. Maybe it might be our place to, I know there's two components. Something can be in a very bad state of repair, but then it's also got to be weighed, what's the value to the town? So it's not just the condition of a structure or a road, but it's also based in terms of the values and quality of life. So I do totally agree that the CIP has to be looked at differently, but it's going to take an awful lot of work on your part and your staff's part. But that's the only way we're ever going to be able to catch up and because like you said, the funds aren't there. And looking at this, it's like, oh my goodness, even if something doesn't belong in the CIP, like you indicated, the IT, we can't just automatically slap something over to operational and think that the funds are going to be there. They're not. So there's going to be an awful lot of information, but I do believe that this report that you at least started on, is really opening at least my eyes and hopefully the eyes of others as to what needs to be done, and given your staff the direction or whatever to go forward and do it.
If I may, Gail, I just want to point out that one of the elements that I think has been missing over the years, dealing with whether it be buildings or fleet or so forth, is the question of what do we need versus keeping things. We have 50 buildings. Do we need all those buildings? I mean, that's a question that has to be raised. Do we have 136 vehicles on our CIP. Do we need 136? It almost looks like we've been just expanding without that preliminary question being asked, what do we need? And why do we even want to consider it? It's almost like a request comes in to do something and you jump right on it as a council or as a committee and try to figure out how you're going to do it. But I don't believe that the primary question that should have been said at the beginning is, do we need this any longer? Or should we change our direction and eliminate things that aren't used or not beneficial to the town? 50 buildings is a lot of buildings for the town of Newington. And how many of them do we really need versus how many should we mark it off or give to even if we gave it to another group and got away from the maintenance side of it, which is the other aspect in the operating budget where we're spending lots of money trying to maintain the infrastructure. And it really, it's a double-edged sword here. You're losing on both ends. And I think that the first question that must be asked is, do we need it? I mean, we do that in our own personal lives. We should be doing it with the town operations as well.
Agreed, right.
Okay. Any other council comment or question? Councilor Minor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Keith, I think we're in agreement that a year-over-year plan just doesn't work. There definitely needs to be a long-term priority list in order to get things done and try to maintain our infrastructure. My concern, and I think the biggest issue I have, is in my 4 years or going on 4 or 5 years that I've either been involved or paid attention to, it seems like the biggest thing we have a bad habit of doing as a council is to try to minimize our mill rate increases that may be required because we don't have grand list growth. And without that grand list growth and an artificial attempt to go to a zero or a minimal increase, we're taking money away from things that should be invested in. And you're 100% right that we have a lot of equipment that is outlived its life expectancy, and at its age, it's costing us more that way than it would be had it been retired or replaced. If I remember correctly, and this is right on the bridge of when I got involved, there was a report that was done, if I remember correctly, by Phoenix Advisors that had discussed going to a percentage-based CIP annual budget and trying to encompass it that way on a percentage base versus just a flat rate. As more and more people are saying that government needs to run like a business, I would agree with that. And generally the way it's done in a corporate environment is a board of directors, they set the capital program at a fixed percentage on the budget. And that's based on the revenues, the earnings, borrowing, and everything is a lump sum whole. And the department or business units make their capital requests, and the board of directors determines the priorities and which way to fund and what to do. And that's based on, preservation of the assets as well as what the return on investment is. And I'd be curious to what your thoughts are on that in terms of the possibility at this point, depending on how the OR&L report comes back. Does it make sense to look at it as, a short 5-year, 10-year capital plan and do like so many other towns do of going to bond a larger amount covering, a vast variety of projects over an extended period of time? I'm just curious to what your thoughts are on that one specifically.
Well, I would say, Councilor Minor, that you're absolutely right. First of all, you are the board of directors, so you have that same role as them, and then you have people working for you, and they have people working for them. I think that the idea of setting a set percentage, if you want, or whatever, however you want to do it, I think makes sense once you have an understanding of at least the 5 years in the future. In other words, let's just say that every year you need $8 million to run the operation and finance whatever the needs are for the infrastructure and pay your bond and so forth. That's fine. And then you keep it a level 8 million for 5 years, if the 8 million figure makes sense for the first 5 years, and then look at it again 5 years later. As far as bonding more money for capital, there's different philosophies on that. I mean, Newington does have a pretty nice fund balance. It has a pretty low debt service as compared to other towns. But, if you operated like other towns and you didn't, as you haven't got the economic development aspect of it without having grand list growth, you'd be in tough shape anyway. So, I think you have to live within your means. And, we're trying to get the economic development aspect going where more revenue will come into the town, and we're working on some projects, as you guys know. But if these projects fail to come forward, then I think you can't ignore the fact that your spending has to be halted and not grown, and things that maybe would be great to do cannot be done. And maybe you need to look at some of your buildings and say, do we really, really need them? And if not, dispose of them. Any large company, as you point out, Councilor Minor, if they have expenses that are not bringing them a profit, they will eliminate those expenses. We need to think the same way, and it's not going to be easy. Everybody has favorite things that they want, and we have buildings, like I said, and this building report is going to be very interesting when it comes. But even looking at the buildings that we definitely will have to keep, the condition of some of those buildings today are deplorable in some respects. So, I'm not trying to fault the town and say it's a terrible town. It's not, but it's not what it used to be. And we don't have casinos or beaches or much to attract people into this town other than nice facilities and good services. And that was always the earmark of this town. And we need to get back to that. And what the big hole is this economic development that just didn't take place because your grand list was critical, and you didn't increase your revenues, yet you continued to increase your expenditures. And we do have a good fund balance, which is good, and I'm sure Janet doesn't want to lose that. She'll probably say a remark or two about that. And your debt service is very low compared to everybody else. So, this is one of the questions where the policy has to be set by you guys on how much you want to borrow and how much you want to use your fund balance. We did use some of the fund balance this year to avoid the tax increase, but you can't do that every year. So you have to be realistic. And I think that Chris, you make some great points. And if we ran this like a business, we probably would be much better off.
Okay, yeah, just that, I think before that, I think that finance had pointed it out that we have a bad habit of, instead of disposing of our assets at the end, we tend to recirculate them or redistribute them, and it tends to grow. And I can remember back, I believe, when Jay Patalico was around, and there was some issues specific to what is our fleet? Why do we have such a large fleet? And here we are probably 10 or so plus years later going over the same conversation. And I think that operationally needs to be as much of a conversation as policy regarding CIP. I think both really need to play hand in hand in terms of delivering the goods and services we do to the taxpayers, but delivering them in the most efficient and cost-effective way of doing it, I think is what it comes down to. Thank you.
Totally agree with you.
Mr. Chapman, I have a quick question. In your review of the CIP, kind of on the outside of our CIP process, there are other CIP accounts as well. So, the Board of Ed has their own CIP piece, but our Parks and Rec department also has a separate CIP. And so I've wondered over the years how much sense it makes to have kind of all these different pockets of money versus just one source. And I'm wondering what you think about that.
I'm a firm believer that, again, you're the fiscal responsible commission. All the departments, I don't care whether it's Parks and Rec or Highway or school or whatever, they're a department that needs money to operate. Some departments have the benefit of raising money, like Parks and Rec. Highway doesn't have any way of raising money. Schools really don't. The state provides funding for them in various ways, but I really think that the financial control has to rest with you 9 individuals. And because every department is spending your money, and you need to have control of that, and you need to control all revenue coming into this town, because it's all part of the bigger package, and the taxpayers are the ones that are carrying the load here. Maybe I'm too old-fashioned here, but I think that you guys, as the policymakers, should be controlling all revenue and all expenditures, period. And every department is treated equally, and nobody has any CIP plans or anything else. And all the revenue comes to the town, not to anybody else. Some departments, like Parks and Rec, may not agree, but that's my view on it.
Well, yeah, I guess, so, we have CIP, like I mentioned, for Board of Ed and Parks and Rec, but there's also Enterprise Fund, and I'm sure there's probably other ones that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head right now, but there are so many different kind of sources of income for different aspects of our town that it feels like we as a council may want to consider reining that in and putting it all under one umbrella, as Mr. Chapman just alluded to. So part of that is CIP, and part of that may be some other things that we need to consider, but just food for thought for everyone, that may be something to look at as well. Any other council question or comment? So Mr. Chapman, you're anticipating part 2 of your CIP report will be coming out in November?
Yeah, I believe that Owens has indicated to us that they needed more time, and I can see why after looking at the draft, to provide the funding and the priorities now of each building. So I anticipate that sometime in mid-November, we're going to get their final. And once we get that, then they're also going to give us, a summary of everything that's contained within the 4,000-page report, which you wouldn't want to have to look at all that. But I will tell you, based upon what I've seen, the old saying that a picture's worth 1,000 words, you're going to see some photographs that are pretty shocking. And I think that's what you need to look at along with the recommendations of Owens and their group as to how you should move forward. And really, I think part of what you need to do is once we give you the list of all of the inventory on buildings is, I think you really have to think about what buildings do you want to continue to own. It's nice to, keep old buildings and we have to have the buildings that we own fully utilized. And I'm not sure that that's the case right now. You just lost 38,000 square feet moving into the new town hall. And yes, it was kind of a shock to go from, 120,000 square feet down to 80 or whatever it is. But you know what? We're all fitting in there. It's going to work out fine. So it just tells me that it was nice to have all that extra room in the old town hall. But was it efficient? I don't think so. And same with the equipment. I mean, how many vehicles do we really need to have to get our job done? And so you have to look at it, and we can quickly come up with answers to the rolling stock and to the IT program, and the buildings will be done by Owen. So it is a major undertaking, but we're supposed to do that, annually as administration anyway. And I assume that Janet, are you on right now? Janet?
Yep, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. I mean, you played a critical role in all of this. But, if the council decides to at least temporarily turn this responsibility over to the administration this year, it's feasible, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the town manager's always reviewed it and gone through it with the department heads anyways before it's gone to committee. This would just be basically a step taken out of that process, maybe give us a little bit more time to refine it and fine tune it before it goes to the committee for budget.
Right. And again, I don't think that the administration, and I'm not speaking of any current administration, but the administrations in the past, I don't believe that they looked at the CIP plan the way I'm looking at it. So there would be some adjustments made based upon my perception of what the CIP plan should be versus what it had turned into be through the previous administrations.
Yeah, I will say that over the years, having served on that committee a few times, it was always intended to act as a 5-year plan, but it never did. So in my history on the council, each year we talked about a 5-year projection of possible projects, but it was never a 5-year plan that we followed year by year. So it was always kind of like, we threw some projects on there. These are things we know are coming. So we'll put them out there, but next year when we don't have money for it or whatever, we'll just keep pushing it out. And that has happened historically for many years. I know, the one example I'm thinking of is the Newington High School air conditioning for that 3rd floor, when I think it was on that list for 20 years before it finally got funded. So it's kind of been that where we earmark projects that we know need something, but we haven't actually honored it as a 5-year true plan. And each year we're just modifying that current year instead of truly planning and leaving those 5 years out and then just modifying little tweaks here and there that we need. So I think this is well overdue in terms of looking at this and figuring out how to fix it. I guess the question is, for next steps, we are very close to where that committee needs to start meeting for budget. I think typically they start meeting in December, January. So, I know we're not looking to take action this evening, but we would have to consider how we want to move forward relatively quickly, perhaps by the end of November, to know entering into this next budget cycle, what we need to do. I see Councilor Nagel shaking his head, but I know Councilor Minor had his hand up first. Councilor Minor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just two quick things, Keith, is I think the one question I've had is if we go to a 5-year projected plan, how is it bound from one council to the next? Do we have the ability to say, this is the 5-year plan, next council, you need to stick to it? That's always been my first question. And then the second question would be the difference of the CIP committee to us looking at it as final blush would be a difference of not having the Board of Ed at the table per se versus just us dealing with it. Am I correct in that? Is that the only difference essentially?
Yes, essentially, yes, because of the way the committee is configured. I mean, if you wanted to continue a committee, I think you have to recognize that it's just not the council and the Board of Education. It's much bigger than that. Every department has needs, and they're not represented at the table. But as far as a 5-year and longer commitment by the council, you know, that's where I think the administration plays an important part, in that the administration should not allow, we'll say, a rogue council to come in and change everything. I mean, that's not in the best interest of the town. And, you know, and let me just explain why I think this is not a difficult challenge here. Because if you take just the rolling stock, the vehicles, we have 135 or whatever. We can quickly identify the life expectancy of every vehicle we have. We can identify, based upon a 3.5–4% inflation factor, what it's going to cost to replace that vehicle. And if we do the same process with the vehicles and the IT and the buildings and the road system, I mean, we know that we need $1.5 million a year or thereabouts to maintain a 20-year cycle on our roads. We know what the conditions of the roads are. And I'll give you an example. Pepperbush, which is a street up off of Kitts Lane. Pepperbush development was built starting in 1999 and ended in 2003. Those streets up there are now about 20 years old, and those streets need milling and paving. And it's a perfect example. That's not a highly traveled road. It's not a high traffic count or a truck count or anything like that. It's residential. But it shows exactly what we need to be doing, and that is understand that a road will last 20 years. So we know we have 300 roads. We have 104 miles of road. So we can easily show on an annual basis 5 miles of road, which ones are the oldest. So in 20 years, you can just look back and say, okay, we did this 20 years ago. Now we're going to start it over. And you could do that with the buildings. Every building has a life cycle, whether it be the roofs, the windows, the air conditioning. We build that all into this capital improvement plan. So there's no deviation. There's no need to get in and massage things. We know if we develop this plan right, we know exactly what's going to happen this year, next year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. The way the equipment reserve plan was set up, because I was instrumental in having it set up, is that we could tell you how many times a vehicle would be replaced over the next 100 years and how much they would cost each time. I mean, that's how sophisticated the system is. And we can do the same thing for every part of our CIP plan. And if we decide that we want to have IT as part of it, then we change the requirements where 7 years life maybe is reduced to 3-year life, whatever fits the bill. But it's not rocket science. It's basic. This is what you have. This is how long you're going to have it, and this is what it's going to cost to replace when you replace it. Simple. And if something changes, if all of a sudden the town were to pick up an additional, 40,000 population somehow, then we'd certainly have to look at that change. The likelihood of that happening is very small. You have a aging population. You have a school population that's been decreasing. So we know we have those parameters as well. We know the income levels. All that information is there. So all we have to do is apply it accordingly, and it's all based upon the needs. I hope that
Okay.
answers.
I would agree with everything you said there. My only concern is if we don't properly fund it, then this is all a moot point in discussion. And that is going to be where it's going to get difficult. is we only have so many dollars to work with, and unless we can get additional state funding or grant monies, throughout, that's our only chance of having a problem, would be not properly funding it based on not having the revenue streams be able to match. We're looking basically at a 3% increase year over year, just as a rough average. And if we can't keep pace, that's my fear.
You're absolutely right. And that's where maybe, we have to look at bonding more, economic development, accelerate that whole program. But keep in mind with economic development, you're about 93%, 94% developed already. So there's not a lot of new development space left. There may be redevelopment, but again, those are issues that take time, and we're not in control of that money, because it's private money that's being invested into the town of Newington.
I think that's where it takes the creativity to try to figure out a way to get property owners to see a desire or need to reinvest in their property, which ultimately is a windfall to us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Counselor Nagel?
As the minutes have been going by and the conversation's going on, people have been saying exactly what I've been thinking. And as opposed to repeating what is so eloquently has been said by others, it definitely appears, if it hasn't before, to all the people who are on the council or listening to this particular meeting, that this is not an easy thing to patch in terms of CIP. It is more complicated and convoluted, and it is something that can't be patched to continue the CIP process as it presently is. Something needs to be done, and we need to bite the bullet to make certain things are changed as opposed to patched, and to eliminate the problems that we've had in the past, where people seem to have thought, including myself, that capital improvements project means spending money on things to improve, as opposed to looking at what we have, and in some cases how to maintain it, and what, as Mr. Chapman has pointed out, what we could do without, especially in terms of structures, which may not be what this committee was intended to do anyway. So things have become more of a firefighting kind of committee, as opposed to having a plan, sticking to the plan, and dealing with the resources, the expert resources that our town has to guide us as a council to improve what we can with the monies we have and the economic situation that we have for the town's betterment, and keeping this town as best as we can under the restrictions that we have financially. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor Nagel. Counselor Camillo?
Hi, everyone. How is everybody tonight?
Good, thanks.
We have a 2020 plan. Now we have a 2030 plan. If we had the plan and we let our town planner plan for us and bring it back to us, instead of politics getting in the way, and then our administration looking at it and see if it works, go east of the river. They had a 25-year plan, and both sides, Democrats and Republicans, agreed to stay out of it and let the administration do what they had to do. And they're booming over there. There's the community centers, there's docks on the river, all kinds of housing. Things are going well. We can do that here, but we have to step back as Democrats and Republicans. We walk into the meeting, let's leave it at the curb and just be residents of Newington working as a council. CIP, that's the administration's job. That's not us. They can bring it back to us. Keith is right on. It worked 20 years ago, and it'll work again. But we can't get in there and fine tune. That's not our job. A lot of us don't have jobs like that in the real world. a lot of us just work for other people. And keeping the numbers low, just like in our house, we have a budget and we don't spend more than we have. And if we do, we get in trouble. So hopefully what we're talking about now, we can move forward and eliminate the CIP as far as the committee and let our town staff handle that and then bring it back to us when they have a budget. So, thanks, Keith, for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Camillo. Deputy Mayor Bedrejko?
Yes, going back to, the question of holding each new town council to the CIP. Well, that's where part of the problem, because that's where obviously it becomes political. To me, if the staff does their job, collects the data that is necessary, which is going to take a long time, the infrastructure, the roads, the buildings, the fleets, whatever, the data is going to tell the story. I think the only politics that will enter into it is a determination or a decision on what's a need versus what's a want. But the data is going to be that the data, the facts are the facts. And I would hope council members, the data would be presented or would be in such a way or that it's going to be in front of us. There's not going to be an opportunity for questioning the validity of what needs to be done. At that point, it's just going to be prioritizing need versus want or whatever. So hopefully this might keep politics out of it. It'll never eliminate it, but it won't be as political as it's been in the past. And quite frankly, I mean, I've seen counselors getting phone calls, during the CIPs from lobbying from different departments to, support this, don't support that, whatever. So hopefully this will eliminate at least that part of it. But secondly, in terms of the budget, I mean, we only have a limited amount of money to work with, whether we have a capital improvement budget or an operating budget. The money, there's only a certain amount of money there. And we're not going to be able to do everything that we think we need to do for the CIP. We're not going to be able to do everything we think in operating. But I think this is going to give us a better handle on how we can or should be spending our limited dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so Mr. Chapman, we look forward to part 2 and then taking action on this and making some tough decisions as a council on how to best move forward with this. Thank you.
We're all looking for part 2. That'll be in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
That'll put it all together.
Wonderful. Thank you for all your hard work on this.
You're welcome.
All right, the next item is we're moving on to new business, and the only item under new business this evening is our health benefit calculations for 2019-2020. And I know we have Ms. Murphy on with us, our finance director. Welcome, Ms. Murphy.
Thanks. So I sent you the memo, let you know what the amounts were. Last year was really the first year on the town side we've really gotten a credit. And I realized last year that it was during election time, it wasn't brought to the council to make them aware of it. So I wanted to make sure that you guys understood the process and what the credit was this year. Last year we had between a $600,000 and $700,000 credit on the town side. Once again, if we've had more than 100,000, I'm amazed. This year we have a little over $1 million, which is great. I am making my recommendation in the memo to the town manager that this stay in the health benefit fund. The way that the health benefit fund works is if the Board of Ed pays more in than their claims, they get a credit back. But if their claims are over what they pay in, the town is responsible to paying the excess. So our insurance broker always advises we keep about 30% of the total claims plus the IBNR in there for each year. That comes to about a little over 400 million. Right now, we have actually a nice cushion in our fund balance. We're about 5 million. That being said, I don't know how COVID is going to hit our claims this year. If all, we had a slower claim year last year due to the fact that a lot of people couldn't go to different doctors or hospitals for procedures. So we're probably going to see those claims start to ratchet up sometime this year, and I want to keep us safe. I'll put it that way, that we don't get too far down there in fund balance. If come budget time, I do find that because by then I can make decision by March exactly. I do the first calculation in March to see where we are, and we see we're having again a great year. We can look to use that in our budgeting process to reduce the amount the town puts in for the next year. But once again, that won't be till March that I'll really have those numbers. On the other side, I did also want to make aware that the Board of Ed's health benefit calculation for this year was a credit of about 1.3 million, a little over that. So when it comes to next year and that expense for benefits, you should be seeing some kind of surplus coming through, because I don't believe they budgeted it with that full amount. When I originally gave them the estimate in March, the estimate in March was only about between 600,000 and 700,000. So if they had calculated anything into their budget, it wouldn't have been at this full figure. And I'll entertain any questions you guys have on this.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Go ahead, Councilor Braverman.
Janet, doesn't the Board of Ed and the town, the health benefit money, haven't we used that in the past for a one-time purchase like Chromebooks and other things in August? I thought when I was on the Board of Ed that that's what we did.
No, this money that they get for credit can only be used to reduce the amount that they pay into the health benefit fund in this current fiscal year. So
Okay.
their credit from last year, this 1.3 million, can only be used to the amounts they pay in monthly for health benefits and health benefit funds can only be used to reduce that. It cannot be used in any other way.
Okay, so is that a change, or am I thinking of another fund that we could use?
You might be thinking of the non-lapsing account that they set
Okay.
up. And that has been used to pay for other operational expenses during the fiscal years.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Janet, I guess I'm confused too, because in the past, the Board of Ed, there was an MOU, because I was honestly going to bring that up this evening. I thought that they could use this money. Is that something different now?
That's something different. This is the money just for health benefits. So, and there's a separate one. This agreement was from the 1990s. And in the agreement, this calculation is made. They can choose to take it in last fiscal year when I do the calculation in March, or they can hold off until they see what the number is in the end of the year and take it in the next fiscal year. But they are required to take the credit if they're going to take it within 1 year of the credit being established. So it's nothing that sits there. It's not for operational. The MOU you're talking about is for the non-lapsing fund, and that's for the surplus that they have out of their operation budget at the end of the year.
No, I'm not thinking of non-lapsing. I'm definitely thinking of something related to health benefits. Carol, you're shaking your head as well.
Yeah, I'm totally agreeing. I was just going to look. There is an MOU, and it's a surplus that they can use, and they'll know the dollar amount like September, October, and they can use it during the year to buy a one-time.
Yep.
They have to make that. They have not done that since I've been here, or in the last 3 years. They've always used it against their health benefit charge that they put in
Is
there.
Maureen still on?
No.
Oh.
I know.
I have the MOU.
Feel free to send it over. The memos I have back from them, this memo went to them, and they have to make us aware within, you'll see the copy of the memo that went to them. In accordance with the memorandum of understanding from the original agreement, they have to get back to me within 1 month of knowing of the credit, how they plan on taking it in the next year. But they have taken it consistently the last 3 years as a credit against the money that they have to pay into the health saving fund.
We'll
And I
find it.
don't have a copy of that MOU, so if you could send it to me, that's great.
I mean,
know.
because that's been controversial for how many years?
Very controversial. Exactly. That comes up every budget season.
It does.
Right.
And this agreement was from the 1990s that I have.
Can you send that
was-
one out to us as well, Janet?
Sure can.
Yeah.
Sure can. Yep.
Janet,
That would be great.
who signed it as the chair of the, was it signed by the chair of the Board of Ed or is it signed by,
I don't know. I don't have the
Okay.
copy with me. I'm not in
Okay.
my office, sorry.
oh,
But
no problem.
I can definitely send you the copy because my comment is when we signed this one, it seemed crazy because the town is totally at risk for everything.
Right.
And I'm not
Right,
sure
and if
what
there
the
was-
heck we got out of it.
Right, and if they didn't have enough if they didn't have enough money in, then we would have to pick up.
Yes.
But if they got a refund, they were able to keep it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Is that the same MOU?
Yep. Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
Okay. Well, they're being fiscally responsible now.
Yep. Yep. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you can send that out to us when you get a chance, Janet, I would just like to review it again.
Sure will.
Thank you. Any other council questions or comments? All right, I don't see anyone's hands up. Thank you, Janet, for hanging in with us so long this evening.
Have a good night.
You too, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we'll move on. That was our last and only item under new business. The next is resignations and appointments. Do we have any this evening?
We have none.
I have none.
Okay. We did strike the minutes off of this agenda at the beginning. We revised the agenda, so we will move on to written and oral communications from the town manager.
The only thing I have, and I think I sent out a notice to all of you that we've reached a tentative agreement with the AFSCME collective bargaining unit. They are seeking to get ratification of that, hopefully within the next week or so. If they do ratify it, then it will come back to you for your approval in sometime in November.
Okay, great, thank you. The next item, any questions by counselors? Okay, we'll move on. The next item is council liaison and committee reports. Counselor Nagel.
Recently attended a virtual library board of directors meeting. They are going to open up the library in a very restricted manner. You have to call for appointments to go in person to browse materials in the library for 30 minutes. The library is going to look quite a bit different than what people remember. You cannot just go, you have to make an appointment. They've done extensive work on setting up plexiglass for a variety of reasons that we are all aware of. I would suggest that anyone who wishes to see the details about this go to the library's website. They have an intricate time management plan, which they need to make certain there aren't more staff and more people from the town in the library at any one given time. Given what has been said earlier in this meeting, don't know how long that is going to last, but that is the plan they have. Also on October 31st, the Friends of the Library is having a spooky book sale, and contact the library to find out the details of that. It will be a pickup and drop off kind of thing. It isn't something where you go in the library and you literally buy things and whatever. So look for the details of that if you're interested in doing that. And I believe that's it.
Counselor Nagel. Any other counselors? All right, we will move on to public participation. Any member of the public may join us and be recognized by raising your hand in the participants window. You can do that in the Zoom app by choosing raise hand, or you can do *9 on your phone if you are calling in. Our first member of the public with their hand up is Miss Lyons.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. After listening to the discussion about the CIP, all I can think is Myra Cohen must be rolling over in her grave if she could listen to what was going on tonight, because I don't know how many meetings I sat at where the CIP was discussed and she insisted that they had to speak to the 5-year plan and was always told, don't worry about the 5-year plan. We're only voting on a 1-year plan. The rest of it's not written in stone. That being said, like I said, the conversation was very interesting, and I think that there's some pluses and some minuses. I won't go into that because I don't have a vote, but I will say that the political pressure on the council from lobbying from the outside probably is just going to be just as much on the town manager from the political parties. I don't think that I can be reassured that those that have the town manager's ear won't get some favoritism in the plans. I've been around long enough to see how the system works, but I do know that the plan needs to be changed. There has to be some sort of uniformity because, as I've said numerous times over the years, every time I think I understand the rules, they change the rules. As town managers come and go, the rules change. So I don't know how this is going to be any different. If Mr. Chapman plans on staying here for the next 5 years, then maybe it will be under control. But if not, who knows what's going to happen. One other thing I'd like to mention is I keep asking, and I still am being told that there is no maintenance agreement for the Piper Brook and Millbrook areas. I do hope when the National Resource and Conservation Service and DEEP comes for the inspection of their waterways on November 2nd, that we pass the inspection. I know we've been threatened before that if it's not maintained, they're going to lose the certification as flood control. And I would hate to see that happen for the residents and the businesses along that way. That being said, stay well, stay safe, and I made it through the entire meeting. Take care. Good night.
Thank you, Ms. Lyons. The next caller is Patty Foley.
Thank you. Good evening. Patty Foley, 51 Crown Ridge. Oh my God. This was very exciting to listen to this discussion this evening regarding the CIP. I built my first CIP 30 years ago when I moved into a condo. It's no different than a small municipality in the fact that we have to manage our resources. And when it's done right, it does work and it makes for wonderful financial stability in the community at large. So I'm looking forward to that. When I've been to CIP meetings, and I've went to quite a few for a few years in a row because it is the most important part of a budget, it got to be micromanaging and pet projects, and it lost all sight of everything. So I am looking forward to what's going to happen. It is actually, I think it's been alluded to, yeah, we need to run this more like a business and get to work, and it will really work towards some stability that we haven't had. So thank you very much. I can't wait to read part 2. Good night.
Thank you, Ms. Foley. Okay. I'm looking to see if any other members of the public have their hands up, and I don't see anyone right now. So we will move on to remarks by counselors. All right, seeing none, we will move on. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Mackey, seconded by Counselor Anist. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, we stand adjourned at 8:54. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank
you. You too.
TJ's.